My name's Ian McLaughlin, and I'm with Benjamin Spanier. We're doing the Virtual Internet Authority file.
VIAF, standing for the Virtual International Authority File. It's a joint project of several national libraries that was launched in 2003, and since 2012, it's been operated by the OCLC. The aim here is to provide library users with convenient access to the world's major name authority files. Included comes from more than 40 organizations in 30 countries. The official mission statement, so to speak, on the official website of VIAF claims that VIAF combines multiple name authority files into a single OCLC-hosted name authority service. The goal of the service is to lower the cost and increase the utility of library authority files by matching and linking widely used authority files and making that information available online.
All right. One of the interesting things that the VIAF does differently from a lot of other services is the visual data mapping, which you can see in the pictures. So contributors provide data that VIAF matches, links, and groups, not just into the authority files, but also cross-referencing them with each other. And that's what the visual webs show. For instance, the picture on the left shows the National Institute of Informatics in Japan has very little data on Elliott Page in common with other catalogs. The picture on the right, on the other hand, shows the Newcat Center of the University of Warsaw Library has information in common with many other catalogs.
Another interesting sort of thing we came upon during our research for this presentation was that VIAF and Wikidata have an interesting relationship. Wikidata being the data produced for and by Wikipedia and the other associated products. VIAF and Wikidata have been cooperating since 2012, which was when authority data from the VIAF was integrated with some English Wikipedia articles. Part of the reason they have a good relationship is that VIAF and Wikidata operate on similarly strong cataloging principles, including one principle that the authorized access point for the name of an entity should be recorded as an authority data, along with identifiers for the entry and variant forms of name. So there's a strong connection between the systems, but no automatic reciprocity, which means that when a VIAF cluster, for instance, gets linked with a Wikidata item, VIAF has no automated way to add a reciprocated link. And also that Wikidata uploads data from VIAF only by voluntary work of Wikidata users. Something interesting that happens during this relationship is that Wikidata has these bots that use something called constraints to check for inconsistencies that users can correct. Two of the most common violations are called single value violations, when one Wikidata item has two or more VIAF IDs, or conversely, a unique value violation when two or more Wikidata items have the same VIAF ID. Generally speaking, it's a good thing that issues like this can be corrected, but problems can arise for the users of VIAF because incorrect information can sort of enter the linked data relationship in this way.
Right. And that's one issue that we found with using VIAF. But there's three others. The first is that the system has a very top-down approach, name changes and non-Western naming traditions.
Yeah, and what we mean by top-down approach is that libraries and services that are not VIAF sources can only refer to VIAF, not actively cooperate it. VIAF, by its nature, not admitting user cooperation is possibly something that may hinder it as we move forward, because on a global scale, a very large number of local libraries are excluded from contributing and sharing their input, along with their data, their collections, and their specificities. The semantic web has evolved quite a bit since the beginning of the 21st century, and libraries must be creative and adaptable, and we believe the same is true of VIAF. Continuing success for VIAF as a system depends on a continued integration to a linked data environment, which is increasing. And of course, it's never going to be a fully democratic system, but there are definitely interesting questions being raised about how collaboration between different contributors to the system should work as we move into the future.
And the ways that these different contributors interact play into the way noms de plume and legal name changes are shown on VIAF. For instance, Soren Kierkegaard. Soren Kierkegaard famously used many personas in his writing. and they are all listed here in the 400s that people can quote the same writer under, depending on whether they want to quote the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard or his character. This can also happen with authors, such as Daniel Handler. Daniel Handler is often known by his pseudonym Lemony Snicket, but also has several other pseudonyms and noms de plume. But when we come down to related names, that's when we see things like Lemony Snicket. So pseudonyms seem to be listed in the 400s, whereas proper nom de plumes, such as Lemony Snicket, are listed in the 500s, which can cause some confusion when a writer is known by several names and they may or may not be pseudonyms or nom de plume. Legal name changes, we talked a little bit about in class, specifically looking at Elliott Page, but I thought I'd go a little bit deeper into it on this case. So for instance, Elliott Page is listed in several countries as Elliot, but also as Ellen, still in many cases. That can make things a little bit more difficult to work with during the ways that some people feel about name changes for trans people. As you can see, alternate name forms. Of course, we're going to need to list both Elliot and Ellen as alternate name forms here. But whether or not to include them as the preferred form for the database is a little bit of a sticky wicket at this point. This also holds true for the Wachowski sisters. I'm only going to pull up Lana at this point. As you can see, the majority of countries list Lana under her preferred name, though there are several catalogs that still list Larry as the primary name for the author. And there may or may not be connections between the political stances that they take towards trans identities. And then again, alternate name forms and related names. As you can see in related names, because Lana worked closely with Lily, both as the Wachowski brothers and just by name, the Wachowski brothers and Lily and their former name Andy are also listed under related names, which means that as these issues come up, they also come up across the board with anybody whose name is connected to theirs. Non-Western naming traditions also pose interesting issues, as well as potential strong uses in the VIAF. Oba Sugumi, for instance, is listed with two different what they call Romanji spellings. Romanji is just taking Japanese and spelling it phonetically in Roman letters. It does clear up pretty well the issue between Eastern and Western name order differences. I know that for many people in the West, we expect the family name to come second. For many traditions in the East, this is the other way around. The preferred forms here all agree, whichever spelling of Oba they use, they agree that the family name should come first in an alphabetical catalog. So uses of prefixes are also interesting in naming traditions. For instance, Meindert de Jong is a Dutch author, or was a Dutch author. I believe she is dead now. And then Miguel de Cervantes Saavedra, famous for writing Don Quixote, the Man of La Mancha. So as you can see, both of these names use de as a, or d, depending on the language pronunciation, in their names. However, for de Jong, VIAF states that as a Dutch name, the D should be part of the last name. Therefore, if you have a Dewey system, you should file her under DEJ. And aside from one system here, the ISNI, everybody agrees on that. There is also, of course, some disagreement over whether there should be a space between the de and the yang, with the majority going for that there should. However, with Cervantes, the de goes with the first name, the personal name, because the de is not part of the last name. It is a connector between the personal name and the family names. Finally, we also get names like David Ben-Gurion. He is a Jewish writer. His name Ben-Gurion literally means the son of Gurion. And so he potentially would not have the same last name as either of his parents, but his father's personal name would become his last name. Many Northern European names and Arabic names also follow a similar tradition. Translated names such as Obatsugumi, um, it also can help people who are not familiar with the language find the official spellings of such names, as is the case also with David Ben-Gurion. And then language direction is also interesting in this case, because Hebrew is written right to left rather than left to right, as most Latin-based languages are. And finally, our references.